She said she had to work late with her boss. Turns out that work was actually a luxury party at a resort, all paid for by him. And when he found out, he didn't scream. He didn't go crazy. He just quietly canceled everything. Want to know what really happened next? Stick around for this intense story. Alec is the kind of guy who always has a plan, not in a controlling way, just a man who wants what he does to mean something. He's 32, an architect in Denver. Sharp mind, organized life, not much of a talker. But once he commits to something, he sees it through. Same goes for Amy. They'd been together nearly 2 years, met at a real estate networking event. Amy was running a campaign for a rising fashion brand back then. Super sharp, knew how to talk to people. She's 4 years younger, total opposite personality. Energetic, social, loves the spotlight. But somehow, they clicked. Their friends used to joke that they looked like they walked out of a winter fashion ad. Tall, put together, perfectly in sync with their style. "Everything you two do is so aesthetic," one friend said after they posted a series of hiking photos together. But behind that was a lot Alec had never told anyone. It all started with a simple idea. Alec wanted to surprise Amy, a 5-day trip to Aspen, right at the start of snow season. He didn't tell her right away. He quietly started looking for resorts, picked a secluded cabin facing the pine forest with its own fireplace and high-end ski access. It wasn't just a vacation. Alec had a ring. Custom-made from a small workshop in Oregon, matte gold, minimalist design, exactly the kind of thing Amy wore. It had been sitting in the inside pocket of his coat for over 3 weeks. For the first time in years, Alec felt nervous. Not because he feared she'd say no, but because he truly believed this was the right move. Everything felt like it was just waiting to begin. When Alec told Amy about the plan one night in late November, her reaction was exactly what he'd hoped for. Her eyes lit up, and she hugged him from behind while he was rinsing glasses in the kitchen. "Seriously? Aspen? Is there snow yet? Oh my God, I need a new coat." She asked if they could do a Korean-style couple photo shoot, then spent the whole night scrolling through Pinterest. She messaged her close friends, sent outfit ideas, even ordered new boots. Alec didn't mention the ring. Not yet. He wanted things to unfold naturally, to let the trip bring them to that moment. But then about a week later, Amy started talking about work more than usual, about her new boss, Dylan, who was a bit intense, kind of rigid but chill if you play it right. She talked about how the team was gearing up for a big pre-holiday campaign and how she was in charge of the digital side. "I think Dylan's testing how I handle pressure," she said while curling her hair in the bathroom. Alec nodded, not thinking much of it. He'd dated busy people before. He'd lived with deadlines. This wasn't anything new. But a few days later, Amy started sighing every time he brought up the trip. "Babe, I'm not sure I can still go. We might have to launch earlier that week." Launch earlier? That phrase started coming up over and over like some vague warning. Alec gently asked, "Do you need me to push the trip back?" She shook her head. "No, don't. I'll try to work it out. I don't want to miss it." Alec didn't push. He didn't want to add pressure. Everyone's got their own stress. He got that. But the way Amy said try to work it out didn't sound like the same person who, just weeks ago, said she was going to pose in the snow like it's a photo shoot. Lately, she'd stopped asking about the cabin. No more questions like whether Alec was bringing his snowboard or which restaurants he'd picked out. Instead, there were late nights at work, one-word replies, and the way she'd avoid his eyes when he looked at her a little too long. One morning, Alec brought her breakfast in bed. Amy barely glanced at it and said, "I'll eat later. I've got a Zoom meeting coming up." Nothing major, no big offense, but Alec felt distant, off, like something wasn't them anymore. There was a moment he almost asked her directly, "Is something going on?" But he didn't, because sometimes asking that question doesn't bring the truth. It just makes the other person build another shell, and Alec didn't want Amy to think he was doubting her. He still trusted her. At least, he did then. So he kept planning the trip like everything was fine. Called to confirm the resort, double-checked his card, booked the nighttime snowmobile tour, repacked the suitcase. The ring stayed right where it was, tucked in the inside pocket of his coat, untouched. Alec didn't know what was waiting for him in Aspen. But the thing that breaks people isn't usually a big blow. It's the quiet moment when the one you trust most pulls their hand away, right when you need it the most. A week after Amy said she'd try to make it work, Alex started noticing the little things. Not loud, not obvious, but just enough to feel like something had shifted. She started coming home late more often. Some nights she said the team was scrambling because a client had moved up the launch date. Other times, it was dinner with partners, though she'd come home still wearing traces of new perfume on her wrist. In those moments, she'd laugh it off, hug him from behind and say, "Don't worry, it's just work." Alec didn't press, but the excitement in her voice was gone. Everything felt dimmer, like someone was rewinding an old film but no longer cared about the scenes. Even her phone, once glued to her hand, wasn't the same. She used to check emails constantly, text friends, post stories of every meal. Now, when she was around Alec, she either left it face down or set it aside on the kitchen shelf. At first, Alec took it as a good sign. Maybe she was trying to be present. But then he realized she only did that when he was in the room. One night, Alec stepped out of the bathroom and saw Amy hunched over her phone, thumb swiping fast like she was deleting something. The light from the living room reflected just enough for him to catch the name that had popped up on her lock screen. Dylan, WCP. Amy jumped when he spoke. It wasn't anything serious, just a casual, "You haven't eaten yet?" But her reaction was pure reflex. She sat up straight, locked her screen, set the phone down, and smiled like nothing happened. "Oh, just my boss texting," she said quickly, like she was racing past the moment. Some press briefing thing he wants to review the script for. Seriously, this guy is a perfectionist. Everything has to go through 3 layers before it gets approved. Alec nodded. No questions, no pressure, but his mind was starting to spin, like a blueprint missing half the structure. A few days later, Alec noticed Amy's black tote, the one she called a must-have for work trips. That day, she had stopped by his place, said she could only stay for a bit before heading to meet a client downtown. But the next morning, when Alec got in his car, the tote was still sitting on the back seat. The bag had nothing but some makeup, a pair of sunglasses, and an old magazine. No laptop, no documents, nothing that even hinted at work. Nothing that suggested she'd been at any meeting the night before. Alec didn't say a word, but all the scattered pieces started to snap into place, like he'd been building the wrong picture from the start. 6 days before the Aspen trip, Amy sent a long text just before midnight. Attached was a photo of a plane ticket, Denver to Chicago. The message read, "I know you'll be upset. I'm upset too, but there's really no other way. My boss needs me in Chicago that week. It's a major press event, and there's no one else who can fill in. I tried to reschedule. I really did." Alex stared at the ticket, QR code clear. Departure time perfectly matched the day they were supposed to head to Aspen. She added, "You should go alone. No point wasting the booking. Maybe it'll give you a chance to unwind. I promise I'll make it up to you." No emojis, no exclamation marks, just cold like a cancellation notice. Alec read the message over and over. He didn't reply right away, just stared at the plane ticket, then picked up his phone and double-checked the resort's check-in date. He knew Amy wasn't careless. But since when did she go on a work trip and forget her work bag? Since when did your girlfriend cancel a getaway in a tone that sounded like an internal company memo? No fights, no yelling, but the way she shut down the trip, like she was rescheduling a calendar conflict, made Alec realize this wasn't just about work. He didn't reply to her message that night. He didn't call. For the next 3 days, there was silence between them. That limbo wore on him, like trying to hold on to a frayed rope that was already coming apart. On the day of departure, Alex still went to the airport as planned. No rescheduling, no cancellations. Everything happened exactly as intended, except the person he was supposed to go with wasn't there. He didn't overthink it anymore, didn't try to explain it away or fill the silence with comforting assumptions. He just did what someone who's been left behind does, kept going, quietly. The flight from Denver to Aspen wasn't long, nothing notable. But what lingered in Alec was the cold. Not from the snow, but from the emptiness. The kind of empty that feels like stepping into a brand new house. Beautiful, but the lights haven't been installed yet. When he arrived at the resort, the front desk recognized his name instantly. "Mr. Alec, cabin 17 is ready, And the afternoon ski tour for 2 has been confirmed, the woman said, gently, unaware of the real story. Alec gave a small nod and handed over his ID. No need to explain. No need to correct the number of guests. He just took the key and walked straight to the cabin. It was exactly how he pictured it. Warm, quiet, with a wide glass window overlooking the snow-covered pines. The fireplace was already lit. But he didn't sit down. Something inside him was unsettled, like a knock echoing inside his head that wouldn't stop. He opened his suitcase, pulled out his coat, and hung it on the wooden hook by the door. While folding his ski gear, his phone buzzed. A message from a friend, someone who worked in social media back in Denver, often shot fashion content at events. The message came with a link to an Instagram story. "Alec, is this Amy?" He tapped the link. The connection lagged for a beat, weak signal. Then the screen loaded a 15-second story, a pop song playing in the background, a slow pan around a laughing group of people outside cabin 9. Not far from where he was standing, and right in the center of the frame, was Amy. She was wearing the white knit sweater Alec had bought her in September, hand-woven, high-necked. In her hand was a glass of red wine, eyes smiling, lips painted red. And next to her, no one else but Dylan, the new boss she'd been talking about. Dylan had his arm around Amy's shoulders, not tightly, but enough for anyone watching to understand. This wasn't just work. They clinked glasses, both turning toward the camera. Then Amy leaned in and kissed him on the cheek, the kind of kiss she once told Alec was only for people who matter. Alec dropped the phone onto the bed like it had burned his hand. He didn't replay the story, didn't rewind, didn't save it. He didn't need to. Once was more than enough. His heart didn't race. His hands didn't shake. Just an emptiness tracing down his spine, the kind that had no words. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, snow was falling. Soft, steady, silent. The wind pushed flurries across the glass, as if trying to blur out the whole scene. The phone buzzed again. Another message from the same friend, this time with a screenshot. It showed the account that posted the story, a well-known stylist who'd worked with the brand Amy was currently with. The tags were crystal clear. @Amy.PR, @DylanWCP, @Aspen Heights Resort. Alec didn't doubt anymore. He didn't need more signs. She never went to Chicago. There was no press event. She used the exact plane ticket he bought, the booking he paid for, the resort he planned, and she used it all to go on vacation with her boss. He picked up his phone and called the front desk. His voice was steady, sharp. "Can you confirm if cabin 9 checked in today? Is there a name in the system?" "Yes, sir," the receptionist replied politely. The reservation was checked in under Amy Carter. She mentioned her boyfriend had an emergency and transferred the trip to her and a few friends. "Transferred?" "Yes, sir." She had the confirmation code and a card that matched the booking, so we proceeded as usual. Alec thanked them and hung up. No harsh words, no argument. But in his head, scenes played in reverse like a broken reel. Amy saying, "I'll try my best. You should just go alone. No point wasting it." She hadn't just lied. She planned it, from the moment she backed out of the trip, to how she transferred the booking, to who she'd be sharing it with. Every move calculated, and perfectly timed as long as Alec stayed in the dark. He sat down beside the fireplace. Phone still in his hand, though he wasn't looking at it, just staring at the pair of snow boots by his feet, the same kind he bought Amy last winter. She was wearing them right now, out there, with someone else. On the trip he'd spent a month planning for her, and she still hadn't called. Not a message, not a word. Because to her, this was never a mistake, never something to apologize for. Alec sat by the fireplace for nearly an hour. No words. No movement. He didn't touch his phone again. Outside, the snow kept falling, a fresh layer quietly covering up the footprints from earlier, as if trying to erase the evidence. But nothing outside could ease the cold in his chest. Not anger, not shouting, but also no heaviness left to carry. Just a quiet, steady understanding. He had been betrayed, and he knew exactly what came next. He stood up, picked up his phone, and called the front desk, his voice calm, even. "I'd like to cancel all the add-ons for this booking." The person on the other end hesitated, trying to confirm. "You mean the private dinners, the night snowmobile tour, the couple's spa session?" "Correct." "Yes, cancel all of it." "Would you like to keep any of the tours for one guest?" "No, cancel everything." He hung up before the receptionist could ask anything else. Then Alec opened his banking app, transferred all the funds from the linked card into a secondary account, and locked online payments. It took less than a minute. The trip meant nothing now. And this luxury resort, the place where Amy was laughing with her boss, didn't deserve his kindness anymore. About an hour later, someone knocked on his cabin door. Alec didn't respond. The knock came again. This time, he stood up and opened the door with quiet finality. Standing there was a manager, well-dressed, polite, but clearly tense. "Sorry to disturb you, sir. It seems there's an issue with Cabin 9's payment. The card was declined, and the name on file no longer matches the original payer." Alec gave a small nod. "I know, I'm the one who paid, but I've since revoked that permission." The manager flinched slightly, then collected himself. "Understood. We'll follow standard procedure. But if we need to verify anything—" "No need," Alec cut in. "If they need to pay, that's their problem now." He closed the door before the man could say another word. He'd said all he needed to. Less than 30 minutes later, Alec's phone started buzzing non-stop. Amy's name lit up on the screen. One call, then two, then three. He didn't answer. Then came the flood of messages. "What the hell are you doing, Alec? I'm stuck out here with someone else and no cash on hand. You think I deserve to be humiliated like this? Please, don't be childish. Can we just talk like adults? You're blowing this way out of proportion." Alec read each line, expression unchanged. The next message followed. "I messed up, but I didn't think it would get this far. I just needed a little space. I swear I wasn't trying to hurt you. Please unlock the payment, at least so I can finish this trip without a scene. I can't pull more cash from here." Not a single real apology. Not one line admitting what she'd actually done. Just messages from someone panicking for herself. Not because she hurt someone, but because her comfort was now at risk. Alec didn't reply, didn't text back, didn't call. He set the phone down on the wooden table, watched it buzz a few more times, then go completely still. He stood up and began packing his clothes into the suitcase. Not rushed, not flustered. Just like someone who'd been waiting for this moment for a while. He rolled the suitcase to the door, took one last look around the cabin, the place where he had planned to propose, then locked it behind him and dropped the key in the return box at the front desk without saying a word to anyone. There were still 2 nights left in the trip, but Alec had no reason to stay. He left the resort a day early, didn't rebook a room, didn't tell anyone. As the car rolled down the snow-covered road back toward Aspen's town center, he didn't look back. No goodbye, no dramatic exit. Just a man who recognized exactly when to fold a rigged hand. And did the only thing that made sense. Quiet. Clear. Gone. A week after leaving Aspen, Alex slipped back into his routine like nothing had happened. He showed up at the office on time, joined design meetings as usual, kept his morning runs, and ate dinner alone in silence. But anyone who knew Alec well could tell something was different. Not broken, not defeated, just quiet in a way that unsettled people. Like he had set something down and had no intention of ever picking it back up. The first news came from a mutual friend, someone in the media industry. One evening, they messaged, "Heard Amy's getting audited internally. Looks like the whole Chicago thing got exposed." Alec didn't ask for details. But the next day, another update came, this time from someone on Amy's own team. Accounting was reviewing all expenses tied to the urgent press trip to Chicago she had submitted. The problem? No one knew of any press event. No report was filed. And the flight itinerary didn't match anything in the company's system. Not long after, Dylan, Amy's boss, was pulled into an internal review for what was described as inappropriate conduct with a subordinate. They began checking everything. Photos, messages, the fact that Dylan had brought Amy along on a trip labeled personal leave while meeting with company partners. No one said it outright. But the tension in the office said enough. Meanwhile, Alec's phone showed over 20 missed calls in 3 days, all from Amy. Almost every evening a new message would pop up. "Can we talk just once, please? I don't even know where to start, but I admit I was wrong. I just didn't think it would all fall apart like this. I lost my job, Alec. Everyone looks at me like I'm some kind of traitor. I have no one to talk to. I need you." Alec didn't respond. There was a time when he had hoped Amy would realize what she did, hoped that a sincere apology might ease the weight of what he felt back in Aspen. But then he understood something deeper. Anyone who has to lie that thoroughly, just to steal a few days in a fantasy, isn't apologizing to heal what they broke. They're apologizing to save themselves. One night, Amy came to Alec's door. She stood there for almost 10 minutes, ringing the bell, calling his name, saying through the door that she just wanted to say a few things. Alec didn't come out, didn't answer. The lights inside stayed on, but the door stayed silent, like no one had ever lived there at all. Their mutual friends, the ones who used to plan group hangouts and double dates, began to drift apart. Most quietly sided with Alec, not because they knew every detail, but because they'd seen the signs all along. The times Amy said one thing and did another. The vague stories about work, the he's just a coworker explanations that never quite added up. Everyone had felt something was off. They just hadn't said it out loud. Alec never told them what happened. No confessions. No takedowns. No explanations. When someone asked, "You doing okay?" he'd just give a small smile and say, "Yeah," nothing more. He disappeared from that relationship like it had never really existed. No posts, no unfriending, no blocking her number, just gone. Like Amy was a room he'd once locked, and long since forgotten where he left the key. One morning, with snow blanketing the trail near Alec's neighborhood, he laced up his boots and walked the familiar slope. The air was cold, wind sharp against his face, but not harsh. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets, and his fingers brushed something small, metallic, cold and solid. The ring. Still there. Exactly as it was when he carried it up to Aspen. Alec stared at it for a long moment. No big reaction, just the quiet recognition of someone holding an object that no longer belonged to anyone. He didn't throw it away, didn't clench it tight. He simply held it, looked at it for a few seconds, then slipped it back into his pocket. When he reached the top of the hill, where fresh snow covered everything, no footprints, no tracks, he stood still for a moment, looking out over the distance, where the city slowly emerged beneath the fog. No one beside him. No familiar laugh, no shared plans. But also, no more pain. The only thing Alec left behind in Aspen wasn't money, wasn't memories, wasn't regret. It was the need to explain to someone why he deserved to be respected. He didn't take that feeling back with him. Didn't ask for anything in return. Didn't need to be understood. He left it all there. Not out of revenge, but to close the chapter. And for Alec, that was enough. Someone once said, "The most beautiful things rarely come twice, not because we don't deserve them, but because we dropped them exactly when they needed to be held." Amy could have had someone who truly loved her. A trip built from trust, care, and intention. But with one reckless choice, chasing the idea of something more, she lost everything. Not just Alec, but the final chance to live honestly with what mattered most. A relationship without secrets. Alec didn't need revenge. He just needed to walk away. Because sometimes, silence is the clearest way to say, "I was here, I gave you everything, and now I have nothing left to give." This story could belong to anyone, a reminder that in life, the best thing we have isn't always ahead of us. Sometimes, it's right beside us, if we know how to hold on to it. And what about you? Have you ever traded something real for something you thought would be better? And what did it cost you? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe stories like this matter, hit subscribe so you never miss the rawest truths about love, betrayal, and the lessons that survive long after everything else is gone.